Well, I can see a few people joining, and Jamie has joined on time. Perfect, it worked.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, right. You can hear me and I can hear you and it will work.
This isn't how I expected it to go. I expected it to be broke, people to be looking at my nostrils as I'm trying to kind of fix the iPads. But no, it's all working, so I'm happy with that. How's things? You got your beers? Did they arrive?
Certainly did. They are in front of me here and
Brilliant.
some scary percentages on there.
Yeah. To be fair, the last few boxes we've managed to get at least one in there that's sort of 7 to 9%, which
Yeah,
it's been pretty good because normally it goes like a brewery or stuff like a little pub or something like that. You pay about £8 for something. That's a terrifying price just to go into the percentage.
yeah, they're not cheap, are they? And you've got what we got? We've got a 4.8, a 6.2, and a 9%.
Yeah, well, I'm
Bravo.
gonna start with a beer.
Yeah,
I'm
me
gonna
too.
go. What are you going for?
Oh, you got Hop and Half in your hand, have you?
I
Yeah,
have
let's go with that.
draft.
This is basically just two blokes in black hoodies drinking beer on
Yeah,
Instagram.
it's going to be terrible for our kind of demographic. It's just bearded blokes having beers,
Yeah,
and yeah.
basically, yeah. Oh, you've got, at least you've got a glass there. You've gone classy.
I went for the classy, the kind of beer purist who want to see the colour of the beer.
Oh,
That's
right, yeah.
that's one appeasing to.
So you can do the beer bit, and when you talk about the colour of the beer, and I'll drink it and tell you what it tastes like.
So yeah, it worked. Good. Yeah, it's all right. So
Mm,
cheers to Wednesday.
cheers. That's delicious. So what we got? It's a New England style IPA, with very hoppy, modern juicy style benefits from double dry hopping,
Go
and
for
features
there.
huge flavours of passion fruit, bright citrus, and mango, with a hazy, silky mouthfeel and light bitterness. Yeah, I can see that. It's quite fruity.
You've got the job. Brew Point will be hitting you up with a sponsorship in no time. Which, to be fair, we met with Rick at Brew Point, and it's amazing. It's down in Bedford, and we've been to a few of the Birmingham breweries, and they're it kind of looks like Storage Wars. We went to Birmingham Brewery at first, and they're great with that. But the first time we went was about 5 years ago in Brewery, so we just walked into a storage locker, and it's like, well, there's the tanks. There you go. This is where we make it, and they've made quite a nice brewery out of it. Bar and
Amazing.
everything else. It's really cool. But
The thing that
Brew Point Bedford were huge.
thing I've noticed about small breweries is that the level of quality of design on the packaging is ridiculous nowadays, and it's like, so in the book world we're going to the whole spread thing, and like people are actually the spending more money on the covers, and books are becoming like the equivalent of vinyl again, where they're it's tacked on and beautiful. And I think there's a sort of a same similar sort of thing with small breweries where you
Yeah,
can have the Carlings of the world, which are have their place. But if you want to actually, if you can go and sort of buy some real lovely beers from small breweries where everything's like, even the tactility of the paper is quality. They spent money on it and spent money on design, spent money on thinking about the whole thing.
is this you bringing a segue into the Waterstone special
Well, it
with
wasn't.
the green pages?
It wasn't, but I do appreciate the yeah.
Some
I mean,
shameless promotion.
absolutely shames. No, I was talking to a lady in Watson's about it. That they're just that, like, the whole spread thing is new. Like, it's just coming recently, in
Yeah,
the same way that I think the small beer thing really took off a couple of years ago. And it's just making the things that are a bit more, have got a bit more artistry to them. A little bit, it's like a destination, isn't it? Like, you decide, I'm going to get a nice book, or I'm going to buy a record on vinyl because I want to feel it and I want to hear the crackles, or I'm going to go and get some really nice small brewery beer where everything's thought about and it's cared for.
and you get the collections as well. I've seen people releasing trilogies, and when it goes on your bookshelf, it tells a bit of a story. And the same, you get these beer collections now where there's four of them with different labels, and
Yeah,
somehow I do get obsessed with trying to get each of the four beers.
yeah, and these are nice. So where are Brew Point?
So they're in Bedford,
Hmm.
and I'll give you some Brew Point knowledge for those that are watching and kind of just received these beers a couple of weeks ago. But they're a fourth generation brewer, which I was like, wow, that's quite impressive. So I think it was their like great granddad that was initially a sailor, met a woman overseas, And that woman's dad was like, "You're not marrying a sailor, absolutely not." And he owned a brewery, and that was the start of preaching to the effects about extra for sailors nearly. But the whole place there, they've been in Bedford for God knows how long, and they literally have this kind of green square inside the brewery where they just pull the water straight from the earth and then start brewing it from there. And yeah,
Wow.
it's incredible. And they spend so much time with their beer, and they're like, I think they're calling it like a love project every month. So if you go into the brewery, there's the master brewers get to make something that the kind of general market wouldn't like. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, let's make a Jerry Dodger beer, or let's make this ridiculous, I don't know, camel beer. Like it's just crazy stuff that'll come
Yeah,
out of it.
I've seen some. I've got some friends who like. Well, they did have a like a like a trailer that goes around festivals, and they're properly in up, which obviously sort of was not a bit of a challenge over the last couple of years. But they just introduced me to so many of these beers, and you can just tell that each of them are like you say, it's like a labour of love, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
it's
it is.
and I used to go around and sort of get like 5 or 6 different beers, and he just sort of randomly pulls them off. And there was some in there that were just like, you'd read it and it'd be like passion fruit. Like, I'm not drinking a passion fruit beer. That's passion fruit IPA is going to be horrendous. And then you drink
Yeah,
and you go, actually, that's not horrendous. That's
yeah,
amazing.
that's that really well actually.
Yeah,
What is your? Have you got a favourite brewery or a favourite beer at the moment? What are you drinking?
I always I always fall back on Brooklyn beer, and I know that's not a
So
small brewery, but it's one of my favorite ever trip was to New York when I was at university, and I discovered Brooklyn beer there, and it's
yeah,
all and the slightest sip of Brooklyn beer just takes me back to that trip. Like it's instant, and so I sort of fall back on that all the time. I do still like some of the the brew dog ones,
yeah,
um, and yeah. I actually having talked about small breweries, I also like Acai, just because
yeah.
it's so crisp. Um,
It was a really clean flavour, and
yeah,
it's one thing I don't think we should get into the kind of hate everyone that gets big kind of beer
so
things,
is,
which
is,
is a little
is
bit
that brew dog?
tricky, isn't it? Yeah, well, Brewdog's good. Camden,
Yeah.
Camden's that
Oh,
they're
Camden
really
Pale
good
Ales are
beer.
nice, aren't they? What are the ones
Yeah,
that got cartoon uh, cartoons around them? Really bright coloured
and the
cartoons.
open labels. Yeah,
Yeah. I can't remember who they are, but they're pale. They make Indian Pale Ale, don't they? And they're really nice. Although you can get them in Asda, so presumably not to besmirch the mainstream supermarkets or anything, but that's not
nah,
very that's not very hipster, is it?
it's not very good stuff. It's not very Books and Breweries to only release them if they're not in the supermarkets is the aim. Try to get you to find something you like Brew Point to be fair, and try to get you to not drive for a week on a 9% Scotch ale.
I'm
Just
a bit scared of that.
I would be, yeah. We went for the tasting banks, and I was lucky not the designated driver, so I had like three of them, and that was Saturday, and then I think it was Gap, and then Monday, so that's cool. It was nice. It was really
Yeah,
decent.
it's a school night as well, isn't it?
So tell us a bit about the book. Let's do some book time. So, oh,
Yeah.
God, obviously had a read. It's definitely, I think it's a good book to go into the box because you know what? I wouldn't put it as. I like to do a couple of chapters before bed. I wouldn't put it as before bed due to the potential nightmares of the dystopian future.
I never. So it gave my aunt nightmares, and
Yeah.
my mum read it. And she said it gave I never really thought of it like that. Weirdly enough, my publisher has texted me today. Said there's this American scientist who's basically proposed a similar thing to the sleep. So the idea of the book is essentially it's in the future, indeterminate, not too far, but far enough that the water levels have risen, the resources have run dry, water levels have risen, and there's the governments have got together and put together a proposal which is called the sleep, which is essentially most of the population are put to sleep into enforced hibernation for 3 months. They wake up for 1 month, live their life, go back to sleep, and it's called the domino tree, so it moves around the world. So there's always somebody awake at any one particular time. And within each of the cities, there's one person who stays awake called a janitor who ostensibly looks after everybody and trades excess resources to try and get more extra resources for his or her city area when everyone wakes up. And I proposed the idea. It's like I started thinking about the most extreme version of what could actually solve climate change, and at the time it seemed a bit ridiculous. Like I didn't think it was going to wash. I thought it was a bit too far fetched. then not only have we basically lived through it over the past 2 years, but this guy on Twitter today actually proposed seriously that Americans slept more in order to save resources. And I just texted him, yeah, I've written a novel about this. Spoiler, doesn't end that well. So I don't know if we should do it. Not to go against sleeping a lot, because I do love some sleep. But yeah.
That's crazy. But like you said, I've recently been through it. I think in the lockdown, I think the canals in Venice go like till you're opaque, and you could like see fish in there, and they're like green.
Yeah, there was dolphins swimming that through, and I was so I live just outside Leicester, and I was there's a little country lane up here, and I used to go running up the lane, and there was a kingfisher flew out in front of me and just flew in front of me as I was running. I was like, yeah, that didn't take long. Nature's basically like kicked us out in about 2 months, but then it didn't take us long to fight back, did it? And take back over again.
And when you started the book, obviously you were a writer of Climate Fiction Writers League.
Yeah.
Did you go, I'm in the league, this is a project I'm going to do for that?
No, it was the other way around. It was brought to my attention that I didn't even realise that there was a term called cli-fi, which is climate fiction, climate fiction related science fiction. I didn't realise that was a thing. And then somebody pointed out that I'd written a cli-fi book. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. That is actually true. I have. And then I got introduced to the Climate Fiction Writers League, and it's really cool. It's worldwide. There's hundreds of members of writers who try to sort of use their work to raise awareness of climate change. There's some big names and there's some small names and everywhere in between. There's a newsletter that goes out once a month to sort of introduce you to the other writers' books, and we all interview each other. So it's nice. You start to get like a bit of a network going on, and really good.
I was going to just come through that, I guess, because that was my thoughts. Was like, has he done this to scare us all? And then I went like, Elon Musk is going to do this. I'm going to be asleep for months, and it's going to be all his fault. But
I wouldn't put it past him. I really wouldn't.
It felt very Musky, yeah.
He's I'm actually. I don't know if I dare say. I don't know if I want to say this, but I've started to extrapolate the idea of from his Mars mission to just see where that could potentially go in my head.
It could go in a few places, to be fair.
Again, I don't think they're going to be good either.
They're going to be good writing. It's going to be a good book.
They'll make a good book. I just don't know whether it's going to be good for the rest of us. I mean, he'll be happy as Larry in his palace on Mars. But,
no, absolutely. And a couple of millionaires over there, but I think it's going to change.
Turns all the Teslas on us. like a car version of Judgment Day.
Judgment Day as well. Yeah. There's a lot of these movies around, It's telling me it's definitely going to happen. There's been too many movies for it not.
Yeah, could do, couldn't it?
I was going to ask, so I was in 3 months sleep. I'm trying to associate as much of the book with beer as possible, because that's just a good kind of way to live your life. Bring it back to beer. Let's say you're into a legal 3 months sleep you've got to do. You went down into the bar, you wake up. What's your go-to drink?
Ooh, I'd be Bloody Mary, wouldn't it?
That would wake you up. Yeah.
I'm guessing you're probably going to have, if you've been put into enforced hibernation for 3 months, you're going to wake up with one hell of a hangover. So the first thing to do, reach the Bloody Marys, sort yourself back out again, and
bring you back,
and off you go. Fair. Yeah, I think beer's really refreshing though, isn't it? So equally, you're probably going to have quite a parched mouth after all that time of sleep. So, maybe that's a difficult choice, isn't it? A nice pale ale or Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary, yeah, that makes sense for the wake up and hangover. I was thinking kind of maybe a Jaeger bomb to run to the market as well, get that energy going into the stairs or something.
I don't know about a Jaeger bomb. First thing you've been asleep for 3 months, have a Jaeger bomb. Yeah, we've there's a planned power cut here not very long ago, and I thought I'd better empty the freezer out. Just found bottles of Jägermeister at the bottom. It's like, forgotten about those. That's what happens when you have children. You forget that you don't do Jaeger bombs anymore.
Well, you might need them more. You haven't tried it yet.
No.
Maybe don't say you got it on camera though. Social status might be around. As far as the books, obviously, I was going to say as well, a lot books now going into, it seems to be the hot topic that Netflix, Amazon, even RTV and BBC have turned everything into a series at the moment. That seems to be the new wave, really, rather than people writing screenplays. It's let's transfer a book into it. So the question was, who would, because I know in my head who I'm casting for both, it's really strange, but who would you cast for Ben and who would you cast for pronunciation would be Peruzzi?
Brewery, yeah.
Peruzzi.
So I was always imagining it as a film, like always.
Yeah.
It's quite a film. Yeah, and I was reading and watching loads of like I was watching loads of 70s, 80s sci-fi while I was writing it. So it's that's why I really love the cover, because Hiker just nailed that like 70s poster. And so it was always a film in my head all the time, and right from the first page. But I do love a film, and I always imagined Peruzzi as Christian Bale.
That's so weird. And genuinely on my piece of paper, I've got Christian Bale, American Psycho. I've got like his routine.
Have you really?
Yeah. The gym, the shower, the coffee, how he interacted with the woman. I thought it was Christian Bale, American Psycho all the way. That's so strange you said that.
I do love American Psycho, and there was obviously I did some nods to that sort of, because that's all about like 80s and late 80s yuppieism, isn't it? And like the power of money and the vacuousness of society in relation to that. And so that was, I really wanted to sort of play around that. So yeah, Christian Bale. Ben was a bit more difficult because he's old. He's sort of 80. So it's more difficult who he would be. I know who Slattery is because he's based on a person, not in his behaviour because he's a psycho, but what he looks like. Have you seen Mad Men?
Yeah.
So Roger in Mad Men, Roger Sterling, the guy who that's what I imagined to look like, and the guy who plays his character, his surname is Slattery, and that's why his name's Slattery. So I always thought him as slightly older, a bit trimmed, very very suave, that sort of like charming psychopath. Ad Howard 90 has asked, what's your favourite book to film adaptation? Ooh,
good question.
Good question. So Apocalypse Now, which is actually an adaptation of Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. It's set in the Vietnam War. My favourite film, full stop. But yeah, I love the fact that it's definitely an adaptation of that book, but it's so far away from it that it's
at the same time.
It's thematically linked to it. It's definitely the same thing. It's just completely. He's transported it to Vietnam and made it mental in every possible way. Yeah. Of course, Godfather is also amazing. Much better than the book. In fact, the book's not great. The book's really trashy. Yeah,
the Marion Booster books are slow and interestingly painful to read, but they're okay.
But Jaws.
Godfather 1, at least, anyway. You can't say Godfather 3. That was, suspected best.
What was that?
Godfather 3 was definitely suspected best, obviously.
Godfather 3? It's featuring the worst performance of any actress ever in Sophia Coppola, who then went on to be an awesome film director, because Lost in Translation is amazing. I think the latest Dune is right up there. I love David Lynch, but his version of Dune was appalling. This version of Dune is just stunning. The Denis Villeneuve one, he's absolutely nailed it.
The score as well, it's incredible, isn't it? It's like, saw it in the cinema, it just comes at you as a film, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like, it's what, 2.5, 3 hours long, and you just it starts, you hold your breath, and it finishes, and you're like, where did that go? Like, where did all that time go? And I could have happily sat there for another hour easily. Awesome.
I don't know if you saw, we've done recently a Books to Screen box as well.
Yeah.
So shameless plug, but you can pick June or you can pick The Wheel of Time, which seems to have been really mixed. As soon as you posted a picture, people like, awful, Amazon done terrible. There's something like, I quite liked it.
Yeah, I've not seen it yet, but it's because I did like Game of Thrones, so I was a bit worried that it's going to be a sort of a not as good version of Game of Thrones, but also having a young baby, I haven't actually watched any telly for a while. It's impossible to sit down and watch a TV program together. But there's a stack of them. The one that I'm most looking forward to is sort of with a bit of trepidation actually is strange enough. I've got the book here. Is Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Yeah.
Which they've obviously been touting making into a film or TV series for what, 30 years, 20, whatever. I don't know when it came out. It was in the early 90s, wasn't it? And it's way too big and way too complicated to be a film. And that's to your point. There's only, I think a lot of books work better as a series because you've got bigger budgets now and longer running times, and you can be more nuanced. It can, you can. So it's either going to be amazing. I'll be super happy, or I'll be seriously annoyed. So we shall
I think it might be the second. Yeah, like you say, there's too many nuances. A book, there's so much character development, and you can't get character development solidly into 2.5 hours of more than one character.
Oh, well, so it's going to be a Netflix series, so I'm more hopeful. If it was a film, I'd be worried. But because it's a Netflix series, you know, and the first series, which apparently is only going to be the first couple of books, is 10 episodes. So yeah, hopefully. He said Ready Player One. Really? I mean, I quite liked Ready Player One, but it was very Steven. I don't mean to say Steven Spielberg an insult, but it was obviously a Steven Spielberg film, and it was big screen extravaganza. I think I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was kind of one of those put on a Sunday after too many beers on a Saturday, and that would be exactly really enjoyable. Yeah. Aragon, I didn't mind actually. I don't know why Adams abused Aragon there. I think that was meant to be a trilogy actually.
Not seen it.
They canned it after the first one,
which is never good though, is it?
It's not a good start, no. But I don't know if you ever seen the sci-fi series Firefly, which was phenomenal.
Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
And they never aired the last 2 episodes. Well, you can get them now, but when it was first aired, they didn't air the last 2 episodes, did they?
I've not seen the last 2 episodes. Didn't know that they're even available now.
Yeah. So initially, when they aired it, they didn't put the last 2 on. They cancelled it because no one was watching, and then eventually they released the entire thing, and then the film that just rehashed the entire thing for no reason.
No, none at all. None at all. So and if anyone's watching who makes films, I really would like you to make a film of this, please. No. Film or series. That'd be it would work really well.
You do get the feeling genuinely, and I think I saw on Amazon, to be fair, on your reviews, I've got to read through, and about 5 people put, this feels like a film. This should be a film. I think this should be a film. Like, it did go through.
I paid them to do that as part of my plan to get it made into a film.
That's my arm.
It's actually on the back. It's Alison Moore, who's awesome writer, actually, wrote Filmmaking Its Scope.
Okay. Amazing. So what's in the works now? What's the plans moving forward?
So I've nearly finished my next one, which is a departure. It's not pure science fiction. It's very speculative. It's about. I write really spoilery books. Like, trying to talk about this without spoiling it is really difficult. And this one is exactly the same. So I've got to be careful what I say. But basically, this book and my previous book, The Zoo, they all touch on the theme of toxic masculinity, like male relationships with blokes egging each other on, and we actually make blokes are really good at making other blokes the worst possible version of themselves. So I've actually addressed that head on this time. So it's about toxic masculinity. It's about the cycle of male violence. It's a cheery topic, cycle of male violence, and I've sort of thrown into that the rise of nationalism in the UK, which resulted in Brexit, and a bit of football violence, and a bit of it's a bit speculative, so I don't want to explain why.
No, so have you read the I can't think of the reporter's name, but I think you worked for GQ. Manor about an article in regards to toxic masculinity.
No, what's it called? Sorry,
it's called Manor.
Man Up. No.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Kind of goes down the ethos of, he basically believes that men have this toxic masculinity due to the war, in effect. So let's say your granddad was in the war, he'd come back with PTSD, which was then something that no one really looked into. So he didn't get the emotional intelligence from his father. He thought that's what a bloke should be. And it's just the culture in effect. And that's just
right.
And it was just a long explanation of 300 pages of explaining that, but it's really good.
That does kind of play into it. I do touch on the military thing, and the desire for men to be part of tribes, and for us to to wear uniforms, so two blokes sitting here with beards and black hoodies.
I was going to say you're a script reading hoodie, and yeah, we'll start selling again.
And yeah, and it's about how we resort to violence rather than to solve problems. Hence, the big example that we can see in the world at the moment of Mr. Putin proving my point.
Makes sense, but yes, worth looking at, especially if you're very hot on the topic by this now. So that's nearly finished. What are we thinking for release time?
So it's nearly finished. I promised my agent I would have it with her first draft in March. That will happen, but it would probably towards the end of March. And then there's the editing process, which can take months. And then it's about fitting it into the schedule. So generally speaking, once a book's finished, it takes you a good. If you're super fast, it's 6 to 9 months. Normally about a year. Often it can be 18 months from finish to start, and that gets really confusing because I've nearly finished my next book while I'm talking about this one. So, and you end up everything all gets mixed up in your head, and because I'm got too much energy and can never sit still, I'm starting thinking about the next one, which is more pure sci-fi again, and starting to play with the idea about subconscious and what our subconscious does for us. And I think I've got a pure horror book in me after that as well. I quite fancy. I like doing genre and subverting it a little bit. So this is obviously a sci-fi book, but it's not. It's not like, it's certainly not a space opera, but also it's someone I was talking to said, like, you don't often read dystopias which explain how you got there. It's normally just afterwards. So there's the whole
drop into it, don't you?
Yeah. So in this one, there's a whole backstory that explains how it got there, how we get to this point. But I think it's because I just approached it not as trying to write a sci-fi book. I didn't think I was writing a sci-fi book. I just thought I had a story to tell, and then so I didn't. And I was watching older sci-fi, which is different to where we are now, and so I sort of missed out a lot of the tropes that happen in like normal sci-fi nowadays. So I've got a horror book idea that I think will probably do the same.
On the old school sci-fi kind of level, Ripley, the AI, is that AI?
Yeah,
is that right? Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a whole load of them in there. There's American Werewolf in London's in there. I know that's not sci-fi, but I've got American Werewolf in London in there. When they first get in the car, they play Bad Moon Rising.
Yes, it's the there's stuff again.
What else have I got? There's there's loads of them. It's all the way through. It's just choice of music that are in places, and there's obviously, I don't want to get, again, this is too quite spoilery, but there's 2001's definitely in there. So I won't say too much about why. Escape from New York is in there. A bit of The Running Man. There's loads of them.
You do spot little bits of it. It's quite cool to spot your inspirations coming through. So the Christian Bale thing was just really funny.
So who did you think Ben was going to be?
This sounds really strange. So if you imagine me imagining it as a film in my head, I pictured Ben as the cartoon from Her, the little old man. It's just this love relationship with Rose. I just pictured, the man from Her, which is, if you put that next to Christian Bale's American Psycho, that's why I was maybe close to Nightmares. It was strange.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That's mental.
So, I don't know if I need to see a doctor about it.
I think you do.
But that's what I was picturing for Ben, a cartoon old man.
Are you on the Viennese Charm now?
I've moved on now. So again, a brew point, the Viennese Charm, a classic specialty style brew, German purity law, incorporating premium Pilsner, Vienna malts with a noble hop.
I do like a Pilsner.
4.8%, and this was the beer they kind of have on basically whenever it's close to Oktoberfest and things along those lines. This is their Oktoberfest beer, in effect, which we struggle between picking this, as you'd imagine, really difficult trying all the beers and picking them.
So what's really cool on this one is it's vegan beer. There's not many vegan beers. So we were vegan for a while and ended up going back to being vegetarian because it's just quite difficult. Like ignoring the fact that I love cheese, and ended up just like going into the kitchen and eating cheese in the middle of the night, and then really regretting it, like a like a relapsing heroin addict. My wife would come down and there'd be cheese on the floor in the kitchen. She's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I think there's cheese. There's cheese here." Oh,
yeah.
Done it again.
Any beer sprinkling out.
Yeah, but yeah, it's when you realise that most beer's not. It's got like fish in it to a degree.
Yeah.
It's very unusual to find a vegan beer.
Well,
Although they do take the kind of, it's what, sorry?
A lot of the smaller breweries are now moving to that, due to the fish element of it absolutely bongs, apparently. And it's just horrendous
So
in
if you're in a
small
small
spaces.
area, it's going to be awful.
It's like that. So yeah, I think again, it was either Attic or Birmingham Brewery. But like, we used to do this. We wanted to go vegan, but it was just so much easier to go vegan because it stinks. It's horrible to work with. So this is just much better. We're like, oh, cool.
I can't remember what they do. It's to do with cleaning it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So yeah, they're vegan as well. But yeah, a lot of the microbrewery stuff ones are. So I was going to ask, have you heard of one we're hopefully working one called Chapter Brewing? Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah.
They're like amazing, don't they? So obviously all their beers based off books, in effect.
Brilliant.
So that's what we have to try and get in with. But we can only fit this size can into the box, and they have kind of this size can. So
They have to make a special edition for you.
Yeah, special edition month. Here's some giant beers for you to go with your book that you won't make it for afterwards.
But yeah, being his chum. Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it's definitely Pilsner, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting really crisp and clean. It's got that feeling about it, and I think they were saying that some places take about 2 weeks to brew them, but they take 4 weeks to get that extra clarity and that clean taste.
Lovely.
Which,
yeah, I like that one.
I like how we both totally avoided the Scotch ale at 9%. But tomorrow's birthday, I can't do that.
I can't do that on a, what is it, Wednesday?
It is, yeah. It's Wednesday today.
You can't drink 9% beers on a Wednesday.
It's really nice. It's dangerous though because it doesn't taste like a 9% beer.
And therein lies the danger, because you just smash it down thinking it's a 4%, and then you wake up in your socks in the lounge.
Yeah, that is it. Yeah, that's great. I'm trying to think of any more questions. It's quite difficult to only give away about, but
there's
next month.
There is the danger. It's really difficult, and I've really struggled talking about it with people, because spoilers. Most books you get like the spoilers quite a long way through. It's like 50 pages in. The first one comes. I've realised now that I'm out talking about it, I've sort of caused myself a bit of a problem.
How am I going to promote this?
Yeah, how do I promote the book when I can't actually tell you what it's about or what happened? So I've had to keep it quite. Yeah, please buy it. Honestly, the twists are really good.
Yeah.
I've had to keep it quite generic and yeah, not good. Yeah, no, I can't even say that. But yeah, I won't do it. I won't do it the next time. The twist will come later.
The horror book, surely you can say whatever you want with that, but you don't have to twist too much in a horror, do you?
No, you can't. No, you can just do whatever you want. But yeah, I think the next sci-fi one's going to be quite twisty turny as well. I think I've just rediscovered my love for sci-fi. It was something I loved when I was a kid, and sort of when I was like 15, 16, and then I went through a ridiculous phase where I got to read literary fiction, and that's nonsense, isn't it? I think sci-fi is one of the most richest, diverse genres you could possibly get. That can actually address things on a much more intellectual level than a lot of literary fiction can.
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, it is to affect your job as a sci-fi writer. Obviously, you're not a sci-fi writer by job, but you can go into any genre. But it's to look into the future and go, "Oh, what's the most positive? What's the most negative? What are these potential outcomes?" I mean, what do you think as a more real life world scenario is the most exciting thing in the kind of future, and the least and the most worrying at the moment?
Ooh,
that's philosophical with but
yeah. Well, I'm slightly concerned about the potential of a third world war, obviously.
That's not the best this week, yeah.
No, that's slightly concerned about. It feels like we're in the 80s again, doesn't it? I remember being taught how to hide under a desk if there was a nuclear bomb, which is patently ridiculous, but it's what we all got told on Blue Peter in class. But it just feels, yeah, it feels like we're back there again. But I think the thing that actually freaks me out the most in terms of tech is, again, it's Elon Musk, and it's about the implants, where they're
Yeah,
actually trialing them, where you can have it in your brain and you can control tech through thought. Now, I'm not being funny. I don't want anything that Elon Musk has made inside my head. He's a very strange man.
it
And
does feel like it's going to press a button and then, yeah, control
well,
your job.
yeah, I mean, you could see, just the strength of his power. Like when Ukraine were worried about their internet going down, he just went, yeah, we'll put some satellites above Ukraine. Boom, done.
Yeah.
Right, now you got internet again. It's like, right, and therein lies the power of the billionaire. So yeah,
The whole situation, though, at the moment, Ukraine, doesn't that feel like a sci-fi novel from 10 years ago with anonymous cyber attacking every inch of Russia?
yeah.
It's like a different scale of war, isn't it? And I'm like, that's a sci-fi novel. That would have been a film in the 80s.
Actually, it does feel. Do you remember War Games? That film in the
Yeah.
80s. Yeah,
Yeah,
feel
exactly.
like we're in that territory, don't we? I'm despite I think that it's absolutely immoral that the state that the world's in, that we've
Yeah.
got billionaires who could solve poverty tomorrow, chasing each other into space. Like that is immoral.
Literally, yeah.
In every way. But the thought of being able to push further into space is very exciting. Like Mars is actually going to happen in our lifetime.
Yeah. Oh,
I've actually got a thing on my phone that stops me using social media after a certain amount of time, and I just hit the limit. It just told me that I've been using Instagram too much today.
too much for you.
Like no more Instagram. Yeah, so that was, we missed. I was a child of the 70s, so I missed the space race in the 70s, and and we missed that. And we're probably going to get the equivalent with Mars, which is kind of cool.
That was exciting.
Yeah, if not wrong, because all of these at a push of a button, Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson could solve world poverty, but they decided actually they're going to buy boats and spaceships. But
They'll make another world and destroy that one.
Yeah,
they can.
Yeah, let's go to Mars. But yeah, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen relatively soon.
Yeah, I think I read that he wants to set up a nuke either side of the poles to create heat in Mars. I'm like, what? You can nuke the new planet already? Brilliant.
He's not even got there yet.
Yeah, no, we got that. We're going to do a small war, and then we'll go within after the war. That'll be okay.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
I think that's the thing that's most exciting. I do think what we'll start seeing is some really cool tech to deal with climate change.
Yeah.
And I've touched on a few. Back to the book again. See that? That's marketing there.
seamless.
But I'll touch on some of it. I very loosely talk about some of the cool stuff that we're trying now, and as having happened in the past. There's a massive, somewhere in Scandinavia, I want to say Denmark, but I could be wrong. There's a massive kite that goes up into the jet stream that generates electricity from this kite in the jet stream, and it comes back down to Earth, which is ridiculously cool if you think about it. So they just rinsed a massive
concept, but yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
like perpetual motion up in the sky. So I think we'll start seeing some cool stuff happening around that, which is, and there's a term which somebody asked me the other day, and I've forgotten again, that basically is about the doubling of human knowledge. How quickly human knowledge doubles is a measure. And we're at this point where our knowledge is doubling so quickly. It's like faster and faster and faster and faster. So we're going to see some cool stuff happening. One way or another.
It is weird because in my lifetime I still remember some of my best mates' home phone numbers. And
so I remember my parents. It's my parents. Well, it's not there anymore. So I can say it's 01952 727 621. I haven't lived there since I was, I don't know, 16.
Yeah. And then it went from like the brick that you carry around that would just die, and now you can do anything on your phone. Genuinely, it's better than the laptop half the time.
I was watching my cousin trying to do maths. We've got a family group, Facebook group, and my cousin was just putting maths questions in, and I can't solve any of them, like none of them. And then I thought, what? You remember where we basically just turned into two two old blokes in a pub moaning about the youth of today now. But when we were at school, they're like, you need to learn this because you won't have a calculator with you. Actually, we do have a calculator with us at all times. There is no need for us to
Elon
learn.
Musk got it in my head.
We don't ever needed all that pain I had trying to learn maths. Didn't need to do because I can do it on my watch.
But yeah, well, that's still a step too far for me. I'll get like a coffee before I go into the office or something. I just want to pay for the coffee with it. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not quite there.
I have got my pay on my watch.
You're
but
there. No,
yeah, I'm there.
When you said I was there.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm aware that makes you look like a complete donut when you do it.
No, it's weird. We're going to see money disappear soon. Like physical money.
Yeah, and I don't use cash. I haven't used cash for ages. And actually because I pay on my, and this is how quickly your mind trains yourself. Because I pay on my watch, a credit card now seems archaic and a bit of a pain.
Yeah,
we just abandon stuff really quickly.
It's the new layer of laziness. The other day I paid for something on my phone because I couldn't be bothered to go to my bank and get my wallet. I'm so lazy, I can't bother to get my actual wallet out of the bag.
I've now got to spend my confidence to get my phone out of my pocket and I use my watch.
You've evolved.
I have evolved. Devolved, but I think, more like.
How difficult is it going to be for sci-fi writers, though, when we're in space, there's no money, Musk has done it, you're on Mars, what are you writing about next?
This is the wonderful thing about sci-fi, isn't it? And good sci-fi novelists, which I'm not putting myself in, by the way. It's that ability to always think about the possibilities. And there is something that says that sci-fi is a reflection of the time you live in. But even then, it's through projecting current fears and concerns into the future and expanding on it. And that's a cool thing. Right, and that's always been the case, like from the 60s. And actually, if you read sort of like 60s and 70s sci-fi, like like the Arthur C. Clarke's and the Ray Bradburys and the Philip K. Dick's and stuff, they're still miles. They're still, even though 2001 is called 2001, which is unbelievably 21 years ago, the stuff that he talks about is still futuristic.
Well, have you seen? It's really interesting, actually. The film Demolition Man, Wesley Snipes. In that film, there is so much stuff that's happening, and sort of my cat's luck is making a guest appearance, but still,
it's going to happen to me soon as well. And I've got a black cat; he'll turn up in a minute as well.
Looking in the camera as well, too far. So. But Demolition Man, they pretty much drive in the Tesla with the big screen in the middle, towards people. And there's like 15 things. I read an article on it, and everything is exactly as it is now, which is terrifying.
What year was it set in?
That's a really good question. I think it came out in 91, but I don't know what year it's set in. And it was
probably set around now, wasn't it? Wasn't Blade Runner set in 1999 or 2000 or something? But we've already been past the year when Blade Runner was set. Actually, Blade Runner is probably the best adaptation of a book.
That is very good, to be fair.
Because it's not a book, it's a short story, isn't it? It's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sleep by Philip K. Dick. But it is just probably the most perfect, well, depending on which version you watch, but the most perfect and probably influential sci-fi film.
No, definitely. I've seen someone put, what are we drinking? So we'll answer the question. This is last month's beer from Brewery in Bedford. That was in the February box. I've already got the two. And then we've got the one that we're scared of that we won't touch. It's the 9 cents. It's got a shot. It's for a dark evening.
He's not there, but yeah, not tonight. Not tonight. I've got a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. But I've also got to take my daughter to school, so I'm not sure turning up looking.
You just drive really quickly and happily it'll be okay.
First social service are watching. That is not going to happen.
Yeah, but that's great. I'll let you go and have the rest of your evening. But generally, really appreciate you taking the time. And to James and Plug, this is the March book for sci-fi fantasy that's going to be in there. Pick sci-fi fantasy, you get this. Then pick a drink: gin, rum, whiskey, or beer. And it won't be these beers. This is the February, so we're going to have a different one in the March. But you can order those up until the 10th of March, and that's the end of this cycle, and you'll receive it by the end of March in the post.
think everyone should do it, because let's face it, it doesn't get any better than books and beer, does it?
It doesn't get any better. And you get to go to bed thinking that American Psycho, Christian Bale's kind of knocking around with the bloke from Up.
I'm not thinking that. I'm not going to think that.
What a better mix. So that's brilliant. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat. And honestly, really amazing. And all the best on the next one. I can't wait till it comes.
Thank you, mate. And thank you for choosing my book.
Yeah, by the sounds of it. Can't wait.
Cheers, mate.
Brilliant.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye.